Somebody said they were accusing you of that. It's not the whole week.
Where is that at?
I'm just telling.
I don't care. I'll tell him. Tell him to ask me. Wait, tell him to ask me. I'll straighten him.
Well, I gotta straighten them out myself.
Mhm. Resolution. Board committee. Where's that thing about?
Which one?
The awards that, isn't there something about the awards?
That's
Parts of, oh, okay. Kim's gonna do that. Okay. Robert's gonna do the brick grant. Blackwater News. Okay. DJ.
Season today, she was coming on about the same time. I thought, yeah, he figured you just come pick their little.
I know.
Do you?
Yeah, he runs that shop up
She
there
doesn't
on
want.
Laurel Hill.
I know him.
All right, we'll like to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock for our Tuesday, September 5th, monthly board meeting, the Scotland County Board of Commissioners, and welcome everyone here. I'd like to ask Commissioner BJ Gibson to give an invocation and also to remember we lost a department head, Mr. Leon Giles from the library this week or last week, and remember that at the same time.
Would you bow your heads with me? Gracious and eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for blessing us with an opportunity that we can continue to do the work to serve the citizens of our community. We ask your blessings and your guidance as we should meet this evening, that we might do everything pleasing in your sight and for the betterment of this entire community. We do pray for Mr. Leon's family, that you will comfort them during this time and continue to comfort other employees of our county. We ask this and all other blessings in your name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our next item is approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look? And if so, we need a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, both. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public forum. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone signed up for that?
Did not have anybody sign up for public forum this month.
Okay. Is anyone here wish to use the 3 minutes as the public forum? Seeing nobody jumping out of their seat, we'll close that forum and move on to the consent agenda. I think everyone's had that time to look at the consent agenda. Boy, that gets tough to say sometimes. And we'll need a motion and a second for that.
Offer motion for approval of consent agenda.
A second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving right along. Item 2 on the agenda is Department of Social Services, and we'll turn this over to Ms. McCray. She's here tonight for, I believe, 2 awards that DSS got. One award they received while we were at the NCACC in Raleigh. So last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever that was.
Greetings this evening, and thank you for allowing Scotland County Department of Social Services to come and be recognized for 2 very distinguished awards received during the month of August. The first on the agenda, on August the 24th, 2023, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Convention in Raleigh, Scotland County Department of Social Services received the Civic Excellence and Innovation Award. With an allocation stemming primarily from ARPA funds, Scotland County began the mission to upstart an entirely new service and program for the county. After months of discussion, the SWAP program, which is the Scotland County Wellness Assistance Program, began in February of 2022. And through May of 2023, the program has assisted over 240 citizens and provided approximately $50,000 of services. Citizens that would normally not be provided these resources to go to the dentist, purchase glasses, receive hearing aids, and forego filling their prescriptions, now have access to these services. To provide the program at no administrative cost to the county and no cost to citizens makes a large impact on the community. And the committee consisted of, Carolyn Llewellyn, Chanel Kolock, Roxanne Douglas, Felisa Lockie, and Joy Hine. So we would like to appreciate you. And also, Miss April Sneed was very instrumental. So we definitely don't want to leave you out.
You gonna get pictures. Jason, get pictures. Yes. Yeah, she's doing it, I guess. Let me get hide back here because they don't want my big head in the picture. Thank you.
And now for the second of our very distinguished awards. This particular award, we'd like to say congratulations to the Values Committee on the Innovations Awards, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion received at the Social Services Institute held on August the 3rd, 2023. The North Carolina Association of County Departments of Social Services Innovations Award provide an opportunity to recognize innovative, successful, and unique programs within county social services offices and share these innovations with other counties and the public. Scotland County took values, a person's principles and standards of behavior, one's judgment, what is important in life, and created and implemented our agency values: respect, teamwork, dependability, accountability, innovation, and excellence. And the committee consisted of, if you'll come up if you're here, Jessica Bueller, Heather Easterlin, Monty English, Warren Jones, Chanel Kolock, Wendy Stanton, April Sneed, Samantha Strickland, and Jerry Washington. Thank you all for giving us the time and allowing us to present.
Thank
We
you, ma'am.
appreciate it.
Okay, moving on. Item number 3 is an update on the BRIC grant from Robert Sampson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. I just want to come before you this evening just to give you a brief update on where we are with the BRIC grant. As you all know, we began this process last year, applying for the BRIC grant for mitigation of emergency services complex. We were informed about a week or so ago that our project was selected by FEMA, as it is worded to us, is selected for further review. So what does that mean? The state went through a very rigorous process whenever all of the projects in the state of North Carolina were submitted to be selected to go to FEMA. We were very fortunate to be one of the 36 applicants to actually make it through the state level and move towards the FEMA level. We were very fortunate that out of the 36, 22 of them were selected as selected for further review. And I want to give a big shout out to the consultant firm, which is Berquist Review Consulting. They're out of Columbia, South Carolina. They actually helped us once we got to that level to have the BCA completed. And with their help, that was the big success for us to be selected as one of the 22 out of the 36 competitive projects. So what does that mean now? That means that FEMA will be reaching out to us, okay, and they will be starting what they call an environmental and historic preservation review, or an EHP review for the submitted scope of work. So that will be hopefully the final leg in this project. Unfortunately, it could take up to 8 months before this is finalized. So although we can see the finish line in the horizon, there's still work to be done. But we are very excited about where we are in this process. So as we go through and we get through those final steps, I will keep this board updated and keep them abreast. But did want to just take this opportunity to share with y'all where we are in the process for this grant. Are there any questions for me?
How much was that grant for?
On the application, it was just a little over 1.3 million. If approved, we would be looking at about 983,000 that we would get from FEMA, with the county putting up 30%, which we're hoping we'll be getting by other funds. So that's where we are. But that to answer your question, it was 1.3 million.
Well, let me ask this question, and because we run into this somewhat with historic properties on a grant. I know you're saying 8 months, 9 months maybe before they finalize the approval. But if the state budget passes next week and we get what we requested for this project,
Correct.
can we begin that project not actually having the BRIC grant approved, but using the state money to get it rolling and not affect that federal grant?
So since we have received this information, we too have had those exact same questions. So we're in the process of trying to get answers to see if that is doable. But we have had we had the exact same question that you've just proposed to me.
Okay.
We put 30% at the beginning or at the end.
So that would be probably at the end, or as we start the process. That was one of the requirements from the BRIC grant on the application process, is that the county would be in agreement that they would foot 30% of whatever the total cost of the application was. In our case, it was 1.3 million. That's where the 980 something thousand comes from. That would actually come from FEMA. But again, if where our hopes are, and that's what we're going to get the questions for, if the state budget, if that passes and we do have that money, can that money be allocated and we start this project before these funds are received? Again,
But
those are questions that we're
just-
getting answers to.
Just so Mr. McFadden knows, that 30%, that money we get from the state can count. for
Can
that
count
30%.
towards that 30%.
Won't be like an
Yes,
additional 30% from us.
that is correct.
But if we allocate 30% toward the project, that doesn't guarantee that we get the rest of it.
Right. Well, but what we would allocate it would be from that state,
Wouldn't be from.
if we get the money from the state.
So is the 1.3, is that the entire cost of the project?
No,
No, sir. So when we went through the application process, once we got the consulting firm on board with us to start the BCA, there was formulas, if you will, that were used to determine exactly how much would be a reasonable number that we asked for out of this BRIC grant. I mean, we could ask for the world, we could ask for the $6 million, from FEMA, out of the BRIC grant. But based off of the formulas on the application, that all this information had to be submitted to our consultant to complete the BCA. And when he came back to us, it was their recommendation based off of the formulas that we need to lower the amount that we're requesting off this BRIC grant to increase the chances of us receiving any funds at all. So,
but
so
all
that's
this
where the $1.3 million number came from, and that was based off of the size of the service, the size of the county, salaries, and the list goes on and on and on of information that we had to submit to the consulting firm to help us fill out this BCA.
I don't want that situation that happened with Edwards Wood projects to come in effect with this project.
Neither do I, sir. Neither do I.
that's why I asked the question.
That's why I was alluding to.
Right. And please be reassured that now that we're at this phase, that we will have, April will play a key role in this, our finance director, as well as our county attorney.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we get to the point where we're approved for this grant, we get those state dollars, any percent match, that part of the grant, the signatures, the contracts really turns over to county administration and finance.
Correct.
And then, of course, Robert and his staff work on the back end of
Yeah, this is not something
proposing
that I'll be doing
what we
on my
need to
own, I
do.
promise.
Right.
The balance we've actually requested from the state budget for the project. So if it's $6 million, it's the difference of the two that we've requested. So hopefully we wouldn't have any out of county funds involved.
And the whole purpose of us, taking this avenue to go towards trying to mitigate and build a new emergency services complex was to try to do this off of state and or FEMA, grant dollars, so that we're not putting a burden on the local taxpayers. Any other questions? Like I said, as I learn more, I will share more. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving right along. Recommendation for RFQ for North Turnpike, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, Chairman Ivy, former commissioners, county manager. First, I'd like to thank each of you for the confidence that you have placed in me and in my company to be able to help assist in the construction and design of this water district extension line at North Turnpike. Tonight, I'd like to give you a little update on our progress. We have written, duly advertised, received, and distributed the RFQ for the engineering services for the design and bidding documents for the North Turnpike waterline extension. I think a copy of the RFQ, the engineering proposals are in your documents, as well as my letter of recommendation. We've received 2 qualified proposals, one from AECOM and the other was from HDR. There are 2 items which I consider important in the evaluation of the proposals: the experience level of the design team and the schedule length of the design of the project. In both cases, HDR is in a much stronger position with a larger and more experienced design team, particularly as it relates to our water system, and a design schedule 6 months shorter than AECOM. I would suggest that these 2 items are related into the fact that an experienced team will normally complete a project more quickly. Last week, I met with Ms. Sneed to go over my recommendations and answer questions. Tonight, I respectfully submit my recommendations to enter into negotiations with HDR for a lump sum price for engineering services for the design of the water line and preparation of construction bid documents pending your approval. I'll answer any questions or provide any information that you might need.
trying to get to that.
As the
that
HDR,
page.
is that the one that done our former water lines?
The company is not the
There
same
we go.
company, but the engineers that are working at HDR are the ones
The same that designed our water system.
that are what our system. Consulting firms, particularly engineers within them, tend to be somewhat mobile. When a company has a lot of work, their value goes up and they literally move from company to company. Some of these engineers actually have moved 2 or 3 times since they designed it. But the 3 key engineers that are on this project actually are the 3 principals that actually designed Water District 1 and Water District 2.
Mr. Blackwell, if you don't mind, simplify this for me.
Okay,
Okay, you're recommending this HCR,
HDR.
okay, for them to design what our next step is going to be. Is that correct?
That's correct. And create bid documents so we can go out and get a construction contract.
Okay, so what kind of time frame do you expect them to do that in? And what kind of cost is involved in them doing that?
We'll negotiate what those costs are. They're not allowed in this RFQ to be able to provide that, cost at this point in an RFQ is a request for qualifications. So they have not submitted any numbers for that. But the HDR will have their design finished by July of 24. ACOM was January of 25. So
And
significant amount of time.
But I
there.
read your documentation. I thought it was good.
Thank you.
And, but I just for my own benefit and anybody else who may be listening, I just wanted to kind of know the time frame and then at that point, it goes out for bids for somebody to actually do the work.
Actually, yes, right. And they'll correct. And then from that point on, I will do all the inspections and be the liaison between the county and the contractor.
So you're kind of overseer of the project.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds like a good plan.
and by their chart, HDR says construction would be complete by May of 25. Is that right?
That's right. That'd be the spring of 25.
So you're talking about a year for the plan and then a year to put it into effect.
6 months for a plan, and then we probably can compress the construction, You will normally get at this stage, they're a lot more likely to give you a longer number and then be able to produce a shorter, so
When we were having conversations with contractors in the last several years, we felt like they were looking at a very long term, and because of that, they were giving us a price to make sure they could do it within that budget.
that's correct.
And I think the attractiveness of bringing you into this project is we could do it in a more confined period of time and maybe control the cost a little better. Do you have any idea how much money we're talking about from now until the end of this project? Roughly, I don't mean.
You're probably looking, probably $1.2 million or something like that, I think.
We initially thought around that. We initially bring up a price around that area. We initially talked about it.
I don't,
It was.
with the water line, early on, I contacted 2 different contractors. And just for the water line, a 6-inch water line doing things was somewhere $750,000 to $800,000. But that didn't include any engineering that they would have.
And at one time, we were looking at prices 5 times that amount.
I think the scope of work at that point, Mr. Gibson, was a lot larger than it is now.
Well,
I mean, I think you were providing water line with fire protection services, making a complete loop, and not just, right now we're providing water, drinking water for
which
the
is what
residents.
most of the people out there want.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Right. And I think our fire protection system has changed. The philosophy of our fire protection system has changed since that we designed the first 2 water systems. We have a pump and haul now rather than we were using a lot of the hydrants. So there's a lot of difference in what we're doing right now. And my job is going to be to condense this to what we need rather than maybe what they want to give us.
Well, I think that's the benefit of having you involved in this.
Thank you.
So how about give us exactly what you need from us? Do you need something for us to take
Oh.
action on tonight or?
All you need to do is give me permission. Ms. Sneed and I could sit down with them and negotiate a firm price that we would bring back to you for your approval. We're not spending any money at all. We're just negotiating with them to get their price down as low as we can and to clearly define what the scope of work of what we want them to provide for us.
So you really wouldn't need a,
I think you just need approval to go with
That's right.
HDR
He said the magic word.
versus
Okay.
ACOM.
Negotiate, that's
Okay.
right.
okay.
I'd offer a motion that we take the recommendation from Blackwell Designs and go with HDR as our company to get this started.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I have one question. Part of that money we allocated was out of art money. That money has to be spent by what day? So we can move it to where, okay. All right. Any other discussion? No other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell.
All right, moving right along, still talking about Scotland County Water Shortage Plan by April Sneed, County
Okay,
Manager.
so it came to my attention, Scotland County needed a water shortage supply plan. That was due June 30th. And so I got with EDQ and DEQ, excuse me, and came up with our water shortage supply plan. That's been approved by DEQ. And so Jason put a resolution for each of the 5 water districts in your packet. And so we just need those resolutions approved or passed tonight, and then those will get sent up along with the plan. And that plan is good for 5 years. So we will be set with that for 5 years.
I move the approval of the 5 resolutions.
That was what I was going to say. Can we combine them into one? Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, any comments on that? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, ma'am. That was quick. Mr. McGirt, you're here. I saw you. There you are. IJ report, update.
Commissioners, I come back to you tonight to bring you up to date on the IEJ. We're on schedule to have everything completed by Friday, September 8th. As of today, they were making the final installations on the goals. They were put in, adjustments made. The restrooms have a anti-slip epoxy applied to them to keep them from being a safety hazard. They were putting the final carpet in the media center, and they're going to be painting and staining doors tomorrow. We have reached out to the vendor for the locks. They should be in sometime this week. So we're going to have our final keying system for the facility. City alarm breakers come through and put in the area lights. And we are in negotiation with the engineer on the parking lot design. So they've got a preliminary on it and are working to get that ready, documents ready to be bid out.
Anybody, any questions? There was some good pictures, I think Parks and Rec posted today of getting close to completion anyway.
We've been getting a lot of compliments from citizens too. From the gym. It's coming along.
We've got a meeting scheduled, me and the chief inspector, inspection department, Thomas Milligan. We're going to go through Thursday and make sure that we got our I's dotted and T's crossed and get everything ready to be open.
Mike, will you speak for a minute? We're all glad to hear it's going to be ready by Friday, but it's still not going to be ready by Friday as far as the occupancy permit based on the HVAC system.
Well, right now, the HVAC system is maintaining our set point of 74 degrees. That's with nobody in it. As long as it doesn't become a health issue, Thomas feels like he can issue that permit. We have ordered the unit, but with everything, it's got like a 9-week delay on it as quick as it comes in. I called the guy today, my contact, and he was trying to see if he could get an updated ship date on it. So it's scheduled to be put in.
But that's the unit for the, I'm gonna call it the library, right?
That's correct.
So the gym part,
Part of reception.
But we do feel like we can get an occupancy on it after we make all these finishing touches on it. But that is a concern. If it does, we may have to just postpone having anything in the media center until then. Gymnasium, HVAC is working perfect over there, so we're doing good.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you, sir. You're going to talk about that other CCAP issue later. Okay. We'll move on to number 7, boards and committee appointments by our vice chair, Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I have one that was actually on the agenda prior to tonight and another that we've added. The first is to appoint a commissioner to the Scotland County Recreation Foundation Board of Directors. They don't meet frequently, once or twice a year, but they do need a commissioner to be appointed to that board. And I want to open the floor for any volunteers.
Slow down. Don't everybody jump at one time.
It would have to be a commissioner. Anyone interested in serving? That's the Scotland County Recreation Foundation.
That's not the advisory board. It's the foundation.
Yeah,
board.
Duke is on, Commissioner Williams is on
He's
the advisory
he's on
board.
the advisory board.
I'd be glad to.
Commissioner Whit Gibson has
All right.
volunteered.
So I will make a motion that Commissioner Whit Gibson serve as our representative on the Scotland County Recreation Foundation.
I'll second that.
Good job, Whit.
Any other? All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Okay.
Our second is to appoint 2 alternates to the Historic Properties Committee. And those 2 alternates would be Steve Kelly and Anthony Stewart. And I'm offering that as a motion.
And just to let everybody know that, we lost one of the alternates that we have, and we're probably going to lose another board member. So this will kind of get people in place. And these 2 folks, Steve actually did the work on the train out there for us recently and with no charge other than the parts. And I'm gonna call him Amp, but it's Anthony Stewart, is John Stewart's son, who was served so many years on that board, and Anthony wants to continue that. So,
I will second that nomination.
okay. I think, anyway. All right, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, sir. That all?
Yes,
That
sir.
all you got?
Thank you.
All right. And next, we'll move on to resolutions and proclamations. The first is a proclamation for Miss Evelyn Holland, and I think she may have some family here. So, you would like to come up? I guess I need to read this.
100th birthday.
Huh?
Yeah. Unless you want me to.
Dan and Durham.
Okay.
Holland.
Uh,
Come on around here. They gonna want you to come on around here. Let me get here to some people online. All right, this is in honor of the 100th birthday of Evelyn M. Holland. Whereas Miss Evelyn M. Holland, AKA HaHa, was born on September 6, 1923 to the late Brady and Mildred Moser in Stokes County, North Carolina. And whereas Miss Evelyn Holland married the late Strucy Toots Holland on November 9th, 1937, at the age of 14, and is the mother to 6 children, 3 girls, Carolyn, Thelma, and Helen, and 3 boys, Donald, Daryl, and Danny. Grandmother to 14 grandchildren with a number of great-grandchildren and some great-great-grandchildren. And whereas Miss Evelyn M. Holland was raised working on a tobacco farm and raised her children in the same manner, and whereas HaHa worked countless years with Chawscraft up until her retirement, and whereas Miss Holland attended Springfield Pentecostal Holiness Church for more than 50 years, and whereas Miss Holland thanks God and her personal Savior, Jesus Christ, for allowing her to see 100 years. It has been a prayer of hers for many years, and she thanks him for the blessing on her and her family. And whereas love, strength, and character, respect for others, and worth ethic are the qualities contributing to her longevity of life, making her a role model for the citizens of Scotland County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Scotland County Board of Commissioners, special recognition and appreciation is hereby bestowed upon Miss Evelyn M. HaHa Holland for reaching her 100th birthday and for working many years for this betterment of their community. This 5th day of September 2023. I make a motion that we approve this proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I've got-
You're fine regardless.
All right, man.
Yes, sir.
We have a second proclamation at the request of the National Literacy Month resolution. Boy, I gotta say this thing. I don't know if anyone's here to receive that, but that's okay. That is part of your package.
Move that we
Thank
issue
you.
it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, County Manager Report, Ms. Sneed.
All right, good evening. I'll go through your updates and then some new information. Parks and Build Scotland Yard build. Parks and Recreation Scotland Yard build. It's coming up very soon, 2 weeks, the week of September 19th through the 23rd. So this is kind of like another public announcement, still trying to get volunteers for that build. There's 3 shifts each day. So if anyone is interested in that, of course, they can contact the county, they can contact Parks and Recreation, and we will be glad to get your assistance for that build.
What were those dates again?
It starts September 19th and goes through the 23rd.
Is it the 19th or the 18th? Because the 19th is a Tuesday. And I
think
signed
it's-
up for the
Okay.
19th thinking it
I
was the
think it's the
second day. Yeah.
Okay, it's Monday through Saturday.
Okay,
and
so
then-
it's the 18th. Yeah,
Okay, yes, sir. Your opioid settlement options. So we are putting back together our opioid task force. So you'd say in our initial meeting for that is September 18th. I will remind you all of that meeting if you'd like to come. Kind of to piggyback on that, we have scheduled what is a required township meeting for October 16th. And so at that meeting, we have invited the opioid reps from your association to come down and explain to anyone that comes to that meeting what we can use those settlement funds on. And so we know what we can use those funds on. We have a list, but they can certainly go into that list more and they can answer any questions about any of those specific uses that you want.
And what's the place and the time of that meeting, if you know it?
October 16th, 6 o'clock, and it'll be here. And so, like I said, I'll remind you of that meeting, and anyone, of course, that wants to come to our local committee on September 18th is invited to that as well.
And that is located.
That'll be on Peden Street.
What time? It's just not on here.
Oh,
I know it's on my
On
calendar.
2
but-
o'clock, that's right. It's on the same date and time that they were scheduled originally,
Okay.
and then they paused, and so I've left them on the calendar.
Okay.
You may still have those on your calendar. I applied for the 2023 East Point County Initiatives Grant for opioid use. Put that application in Friday. That's a potential $60,000 that can also be paired up with this opioid settlement funds. And so we will hear from that in the next few weeks. Laurinburg Maxton Airport land swap. The appraisal has come back for that. And that land was appraised at $58,000. That's approximately 3.22 acres out there. I did have, I don't know if this one's kind of hard to see. What's in yellow is the area that was appraised. This may be a little bit easier to decipher. And so where it says that subject 3.22, that is the area that was appraised. So I feel like our next steps or the next steps are for me to continue working with Mr. Johnston on getting that finalized. You know, we didn't think we were going to have appraisal, came back, said we are going to have appraisal. So here we are with this.
Did it appraise at the value that was sufficient enough for the transfer to be made?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, our deed's already been signed. We're holding it, so I'll contact Mr. Bruner tomorrow and let him know that.
Okay.
I'm not sure that, unless you've already told him.
Yeah, it's
I
been
don't-
re-
I have not. We just got this back like Saturday. So we just got this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. We've already talked about the North Turnpike water line. I did put in here that apparently a grant application or a request for funding was made through DEQ back last September, a year ago, and that funding was not granted. So I didn't know if anyone remembered that being discussed, but we got notification of that over the last month about that.
Well, that was when it was $10 million and had all kind
Yes,
of
and
bells and
9.9.
whistles that didn't need to be in it. So
Might would have gotten approval.
might would have gotten it if we, you know.
Right, 9.9 was requested. A little more information about I. Johnson. We had some discussion last month about what we were calling the IT room out there. If you, off the media center, there's a room with a lot of live wires and lights going on in there. And so over the last month, the school system has checked that out. The city has checked that out, and nothing else for Scotland County Schools is running through there anymore. And so we could go in there and really pull out what we need to pull out at that point. Another for I. Johnson, you have another resolution in your packet. We had a meeting last week with Southeastern and the company they hired to help write the grant. And they need another resolution in order to help get this grant approved. And so this is about firming up, I guess you would say, the lines for the land. And so Jason and Mr. Johnson put together this resolution. It outlines what you are agreeing to as far as when you give the land over and what conditions you're doing that under. And so if you've taken a minute to look at that, the grantors need that by middle of September, if you're agreeable to what's in the resolution. Right now, the resolution only speaks to what is the straight line down the middle, what is to the right of that. It's hard to read up there, but they've got them labeled as SCAP lot number 2, which is to the far right if you're looking at it, and SCAP lot number 3, which is kind of the middle part. And so that's all this resolution speaks to.
Yeah, that's hard to see, but when I was on that call, so this will be the line that is deeded eventually to CCAP. We have to hold ownership of it until the grant is done. This is phase 1, that's phase 2, and phase 3 is over here. Then the broken line, I think, is the other line. So this resolution does nothing with this. It's just concerning this part, so they can get their grants for the building to.
How far is that off? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
How far is that off the building, that line? Off the
He
gym?
measured that the other day. Do you remember it was like 150 feet?
That's that driveway that beside the gym.
Yes,
That pro-
yes. Yeah, it's a, I think 150 feet was from here to here.
Right.
Because he was talking about some future parking stuff and we got into some shared parking discussions. But he actually had it on the CAD system and measured that, and I think it was 150 feet. It might have been 200 feet. Yeah, there's gonna be a
Yes.
buffer.
Mhm.
That this map doesn't show it, but the one he had the other day showed a buffer in here in between. So I think that's required for the zoning.
Yes, and what we're also, this is the resolution. What we're also working on that will be needed in the future is an agreement between Scotland County and Southeastern to determine if in the future we were going to do any shared parking. And so Mr. Johnson and I have been talking about that so he can draft an agreement for that purpose. And then we would also get into that top corner area and decisions about, is the county going to deed that over as well? And will we do any shared parking with that?
Is this the plot of land, the 10 or 11 acres that we're granting? Because if I remember correctly, what they were building were a series of individual.
Yeah.
That's going to be down here.
Okay.
This is just the apartment phase.
That's just the apartments.
Yes.
And the gathering center.
Right.
So where they gonna put the individuals at?
Down here
The bottom end.
Down at the bottom?
On this,
on this end. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they're still planning on doing their own community center because they realized we have one right there with I.A. Johnson and, you know.
I'm
So why is that other piece cut off up there?
Which one?
The top? Why is that cut off?
Over here?
Yeah.
That's the extra, that's the annex building. It's called Building C on here.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the line would be drawn to give, when we give that to Southeast Community Action Partnership for their use of the building.
So which of these plots are we giving to them?
This and this. But this resolution has nothing. to do
Well,
with
that's more than 10 acres, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that has nothing, what we're doing with this resolution has nothing to do with this.
That parking lot.
It's just this building.
And we're keeping this bottom left corner.
We're keeping the bottom left corner.
I believe what you're keeping is about 5 acres.
That, I guess his question was that top part up there.
I mean, we hadn't talked about giving that away. I mean,
Yeah,
we
we
just
have.
talked about giving the 10 acres behind it.
We're not giving the top part, are we? We're just giving that building and parking lot, not all that's attached to it, are we?
Just the parking lot and the building in that section, yeah.
When did we talk
No,
about
I'm
that? I don't remember
not
talking
sure
about
y'all
giving
are
the
saying
building.
the same thing.
Yeah, but that,
The
we're talking about this
resolution-
area right here.
That's gonna be the office.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I
This top area up here.
That's not part of the resolution.
That's not part of
That's
this
not part of the
Right.
resolution. But we've already talked or voted on that of giving
I
that.
didn't vote on that. I voted on giving that 10 acres away, but I didn't vote on giving that up our way. I don't know nothing about
I
that.
thought we were
You
gonna have
did,
first-
didn't
We did. The building,
The building.
not the land that's up there, but the building.
Well, you got to give, I mean, you got to give them the building, you got to give them the land, but I mean, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be all that.
Why are we giving them the building?
It doesn't have to be all that land.
The annex building?
Yeah.
That's where the office space is gonna be. That was part of the conversation.
I mean, I actually brought up on that phone call about cutting that there to keep it for extra, if we need it for parking. And at this point, they're not to the point that we'd even need to,
Just deal with that part.
right, just to deal with that. And then if we had to do something there with the shared parking she was discussing, then we could do that in that clear area there.
So let me get this straight. So we gave them 10 acres to build these houses and apartments on. And now we're going back and giving them 5 more acres.
We gave them that before.
I think that was given before we came on board.
Oh, that was before us.
It may have been, I don't, but I know we,
Okay. I just know I have no recollection of that, of doing that.
it may have been.
Part of my recollection was the amount of land we were giving was about 11 acres.
But that's this, yeah.
That's
That's
all
that
right.
back right there.
Yeah.
And we never discussed the amount of land
Just the
that was
building.
attached to that
Right.
building. We just kept saying
The
the
building.
annex building. We didn't discuss the land.
As you look at
But
that
of course, I
on
understand
on a GIS or what now, that line is not there. It's just one big piece. So we can set that line, like I said, anywhere. You can come along, as long as you have the setback off the building, and you can go back up to keep that empty. Why, that hadn't even been discussed because they said it was too early to start that. They were just wanting to deal with this part. But I think I asked the guy to send us this so she could put it in the presentation. He just kind of snapshotted what we were looking at that day and sent it.
So the resolution that you're presenting tonight, Ms. Need, is in regards to our previous May commitment of the 10 acres.
Your original commitment.
I'd like to offer a motion that we approve that resolution.
I second.
Any other discussion or
And
question?
that's the 10 acres basically from that line this way,
From this line here
this
to
way.
that way.
Okay.
Yes.
I second that motion.
And there's going to be a copy of that map attached to the resolution, right?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Okay. Another order of a business with I. Johnson. The class of 1973 has worked to design a historical marker, as you can see here, and they would like to have that in place by September 29th and I guess you would say, an unveiling ceremony there. And so I assumed our commissioners would be okay with the marker being on, that is our land where they would be putting that marker. And if you can see, I've shown you a picture. They had two sites proposed where those arrows split, but they are thinking, I'm looking at the picture to the left is where they are thinking, because there's a much larger tree that's just out of this picture on the right that would hide the marker to someone driving by. And so this committee apparently started doing this of their own, and then they contacted me last week. And so our maintenance, once they bring the marker down, we'll get it, I guess you'd say, installed, and then they'll be ready for September 29th if you all are okay with them putting that on
Well, I got
the
a
land.
question with that, and I don't know, but wasn't there the I. Ellis Johnson School? Wasn't there a school before that one? I. Ellis Johnson? wasn't it?
It's
It was
I
called
think they got it
Lincoln
under
Heights.
Lincoln Heights.
It was called Lincoln Heights.
It's called Lincoln Heights
Okay.
before it
And
was
was it
called.
on that same location?
It was the same building.
Same
It's
building.
just they changed the name
Okay,
of it.
okay,
They just changed the name of it.
okay. So that's the original school or original building.
Mhm.
Before my time, I don't remember it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I thought I read somewhere where Mr. Johnson had built another school somewhere. I thought I read
Not
that
that I
somewhere,
know
where he
of.
built another school in the community somewhere.
You could have been talking about maybe the institute that was somebody.
No,
That's what he definitely
That's
did.
around the corner.
He built that way before this was built, right?
That was built in the early 1900s.
Mhm.
So
All
is
right.
this something you are okay with the marker
Certainly.
being placed on that land?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
just
so
go
did-
by
Did we
unanimous
have- Did we have
consent.
a motion for that?
No, I don't think so. Unanimous consent's fine, I think. for me.
Unanimous
I
consent's
think so,
fine.
yeah.
So,
Consensus. Yeah.
okay. Everybody consent to that? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
We are still working on finance is working on pulling together our invoices and proof of payment for money that has been spent on I. Johnson, so we can go back to the city's restoration committee and get our $50,000. And so we're pulling that together, and so I hope I can present that we definitely think we have enough to show we've spent $50,000 on I. Johnson this year. And so if you remember, they approved to give us $50,000 in one year and another $50,000 in the following year. And so we're pulling those together so I can present that. East Laurinburg Town Hall, of course, that is listed. All three properties are listed separately, or they have been listed as three separate properties. A sign will be placed in the next week to draw more attention to that. And Realtor said we're getting some interest, but hopes to see more once that big sign goes up. Cascades Fire Protection. We had a joint meeting with Mr. Ward, Mr. McGirt, our consulting engineers, to talk about the water treatment facilities out there at Cascades in relation to the fire protection plan, in relation to the contract that has come up for the fire protection plan. And so this week, just by happenstance, the insurance company for Cascades will be out there on site. And we have asked the engineers to come out and us go out and everybody meet together on site so we can do something to begin moving forward with what needs to be done with Cascades, with that treatment plant, with those pumps, with the tanks. We've got to do something to move forward. And so this is something that's been going on since about 2021 is when we first hired those engineers. And so we're hopeful after Thursday, that meeting Thursday morning, we can get some better answers from Cascades Insurance Company. And then we will be able to decide if we need to negotiate that contract for fire protection, or if we're going to have to stick to what that contract looks like at face value and work around that. Okay, new discussion, solid waste management ordinances. The ordinances are pretty old. I'm not sure the last time that they were reviewed, but I recommend at this point putting together a task force with the landfill, with the sheriff's department, of course, with any of you all that are interested, to take a look at those ordinances, to update those. Of course, solid waste is under the sheriff's department now, and so I think that Captain Ford, who's over that, needs some ordinances to help him do what he needs to do for solid waste management. And so if you all are okay with that, we're going to put a task force together and review those. And of course, the purpose is to bring back recommendations to you all to make some revisions to those ordinances. Going along with that, not only solid waste, but of course, we've been talking about East Laurinburg and trash being dumped and the need for a recycling center out there. So over the next month, we will be looking for where could we potentially put a temporary recycling center, or can we find somewhere to put a permanent recycling center in the area of East Laurinburg to try to help some of that dumping that's going on out there, maybe even some of the litter. And so I hope by next month I can bring some recommendations back for that. We'll see about that. The free health clinic, Mr. Johnston is working on a document that can transition the use of the free health clinic from the free health clinic back to Scotland County. Scotland County already owns that property, and we just need a document that brings it back to us so we can decide if we have any use for that property. The Scotland Memorial Hospital, I understand, will not be using that property to run the free clinic out of. So we will have that at our disposal.
And I think they have somebody still working in there trying to get it closed down. So while I think we can take, we're talking about this building back here, we can take back the ownership of that building and take over, because I think we already do grounds, right, Mike? So basically the building, power and the water and whatnot that we need to do, but I want to do that until they're done with the building. And then you can start deciding what we need to do with that,
Right.
So we can use it, that's for sure. So.
And then my final report is about our local water supply plans. I've been working to try to get the local water supply plans up to date. We have plans due from 2022 and 2023. These were contracted out. These are pretty complex plans that involve a lot of data from the city of Laurinburg. And so the 2022 plans were due by September 1st. I've reached out to the contractor to say where they at. And then the 2023 plans are due to us by October 1st. We need to get those current and back to DEQ and made current. So I'm working on that. And that's my report.
Can I ask a question about one of the plan?
Sure.
I think we entered into a contract of some sort with COG to do a land use. This was well before you became county manager, but I thought they were supposed to have completed that at some point to submit to the planning and zoning board to submit to the.
I feel like I have seen that plan. That's not the same as these local water supply plans.
Well, the commissioners adopted on a temporary basis, sort of an existing plan just to meet some minimal
Okay.
requirements. And I hate to bring that up off the cuff, but, and again, this is something that's been pending well before you.
Okay,
came
I'll
on board,
look into that.
but,
These local water supply plans are due every year on April 1st.
well, this is totally different.
Okay,
This was something that was required under the amendments to the planning and zoning state regulations. And the COG people assisted with redrafting of our zoning ordinance, but they did contract with the county to do a land use plan, which is a requirement from the state. And I don't think the planning and zoning board has seen it. I haven't seen it.
okay,
not
so
sure
we
what
need to
they've
find
done
out
on
where
it.
that went, or if
If
it was
they've done it.
done. Okay.
Is that it?
Mhm.
You done?
I am.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to county commissioner news and we'll start on this end this time. Duke?
First, I want to apologize to April for her first meeting. I wasn't able to make the meeting. Whit brought it to my attention. And what's your name? John Austin. Well, as you guys know, I make it my business to show up. And it was her first meeting. I wasn't able to make it because I'm coaching football at Spring Hill. And this time of the year, it's very difficult. I'm hauling kids back and forth. They don't have rides, April. You know,
I
being here
understand.
for you is very important. Being here for the county is very important. So I just want to apologize to my fellow commissioners and to you as well and the citizens. So if I'm not here, I'm either hauling kids on the sideline at a game or tied up waiting at the school with kids to get picked up. So I'm sorry about that.
I understand.
Gibson.
I appreciate our county manager looking at East Laurinburg and trying to locate a place for I know they are looking for a place for them to be able to take their trash. I think that's a priority that we ought to try to attend to as soon as we can. I appreciate you for paying attention to that.
Mr. Frazetta.
I ain't got nothing today.
Nothing today. You'll have it in the morning, no one. Mr. Gibson. Anything? Mr. McFadden?
Nothing.
Just a couple of things I wanted to bring up. You know, if you need to use a room or meeting room or facility, and you ask Jason to book that for you, make sure he knows what that's for. And I won't go into great detail about it, but there was a question on an event held here, and I think we need to make sure that you know we don't cross our own policy on that. So, or the county policy on that.
Would you make that policy available to everybody so
Um,
they'll know?
You can get that right. April.
I will see what I can find.
Number two, this is more for the folks here in the media. If you look in your green book, you'll notice that Scotland County is, and this is the first time since I've been alive, is not the highest tax rate in the state. Another county took that over from us. I believe it was Hyde County, who is now at $1.04 on their property tax rate. So we're making progress. We ain't going down right away, but we're going the right direction. So, and also wanted to recognize that from our NCACC meeting, the commission, the new second vice president, and a lot of people say second vice president, what is that? That is a big position in the state association and in the national association. But Alan Thomas from Hope County was elected as our second vice president in the NCACC this year. So,
And that the significance of that is he will become the first vice president
Right.
and then the president.
he'll move up. That is the plans. You know, they normally move up to first vice president, then president. Then they'll spend another year as the past president, and then so it goes on for several years. But anyway, that's all I've got. Now we would need to look at going into closed session for the general statutes listed on the agenda. I'm not going to read them, and we'll need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming.
No, that's all right.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
County tax rate. That's right. We are no longer the highest